Hey folks. So I want to go ahead and make this video here because I want to talk about this, and it's been eating away at me ever since it like happened, and I can't get my mind off of it no matter how hard I try. And I think it's one thing that it really comes down to. Now, if you folks don't know what I'm talking about, obviously, if you can put two and two together, you might probably know. But this is about the Charles King death or whatever. You know, the assassination that was succeeded or whatever in this very state that I live in and everything. And not only that, but it was the assassinator, you know, the assassin, the killer, was 22, you know, around my age. And not only that, but it turns out that he I don't think his name was Thomas or something, I think. But anyway, it turns out he wasn't political until very recent, which kind of honestly just the whole thing shocks me, but it shocked me even more because I was expecting him or whatever, you know, right, to have always been like political or whatever. And now, whether or not you think it's justified or not, I personally think it's morally wrong. You know, even if Charles didn't have, you know, the best views or the best this or that or whatever, you know, at the end of the day, you know, he was still overall human. And to one thing, to kill someone over views that you don't agree with is not only completely utterly scummy, but it's also even worse to laugh at his death or to chill on it. That is like straight up mustache man, you know, freaking evil though. You know, that is straight up Nazi. I'm not kidding though. You know, it really is. If if I hear folks, you know, like old people saying, you know, the face of the devil, whatever here, or some, I don't know, crazy person on political scales, whatever, I think the true face of the devil or evil is for folks to laugh at someone's death because you just hate them so damn much and everything that you want them literally dead to be like, yay. Like, how utterly scummy do us people in society really have to be to get to that whole point, you know? And I think what this overall comes down to and everything is just hatred, you know, just pure hate. There's so much hate in the world. Like, it is insanity to me. There is so much hate. There is so much drama. Like, it is utterly madness. Like, it is to the point to, well, I don't even want to know anything anymore because it's just so numbing on knowing what's going on, and it's so painful to like have an understanding and everything. Now, I may get it to an extent if you strongly may disagree with someone. You know, we all have different views at the end of the day, and we all have different reasons for believing in different things, and we all will, you know, we may share the same world, but we all had different life experiences that led us to this point, you know, and I think it's perfectly fine to believe in whatever the hell you want to believe in. You know, that's perfectly fine. But to be with such hatred or to get so, I don't know, crazy or whatever to, you know, kill someone or whatever, I feel is extremely wrong. The only thing of the hope of saving grace that I have with this, in a sense, is looking at, you know, the comments that are talking about this kind of stuff, and many folks saying, orange shorts, whatever, you know, saying in the comments that, like, I didn't agree with his views, I didn't agree with any of them at all, whatever, but I feel it was morally wrong for him to die. You know, that's the only great thing I have. And me personally, I didn't fully agree with his views either. I don't even know the guy too much anyway. But the fact that he's dead over assassination is just utterly, you know, cruel to me here and everything. And the fact that it happened in my home state that I live in, you know, here in Utah, it just, I don't know, it just leaves me in kind of a deer in headlights, if you will, in a sense. You know, I kind of don't know what to really, like think of it. I'm still kind of stunned, and it's been kind of eating away at me a bit, not like completely filled with anxiety, but I can't really stop thinking of it. Even these past 2 days of, my work and everything, it's just something that's really been on my mind. And whether, I think killing is unjustified whatsoever, it does not matter whatsoever, no matter what the cost is. No one should be able to take another one's life, no matter what, I feel. War in the end is all gonna be the same. War never changes. It's always gonna be the same exact damn thing, no matter how you slice it and dice it. It's all the same, and I feel like it's utterly mortally wrong to, do that to someone. But there is a justification and strong disagreement. No matter if it's justified or not, you're tied to your beliefs. You're tied to whatever you believe in and whatever you see fit, because that's who you are and stuff. And that's how I've always, kind of am, and why I always, talk like this on the channel here, and whenever I say, and if you have a strong disagreement with me, I ask that we have a mature discussion in the comments, and I don't say that in like an intimidating way or anything. It's just kind of, how I am and everything. I like to, be civil that way. I don't like to say you need to be this or that or whatever, because that's just not who I am. Even for the folks that I personally don't agree with, that's tied to them and that's how they see fit. And I feel like it's morally wrong of me to try and to force my beliefs onto someone else who may not see it that way, and vice versa for them to do the exact same thing with me, you know. But I feel like overall, with all of the chaos that's been happening and kind of going around, not just with what happened recently, but with a bunch of other things across the nation and world and stuff, I think what it overall is just hatred, There's just so much negativity in the world now, and just so much hatred everywhere that it's just utterly insane, And I normally don't get political or whatever, but I'm not on neither side, because the left's all shouting and pointing at, Trump or whatever, and Trump's pointing at them back. It's like, at some point something's gonna burst, an explode, some explosion or whatever is gonna happen. And I think overall, what the biggest thing is, what we really need to work on, that no one's really giving two F's about, that's not really doing jack shit about, is the mental health thing, and I don't know what happened with this kid, Hale Thomas, or whatever, but it just kind of freaks me to an extent how he wasn't political, but then, like a week or so, a couple weeks later, or whatever, before all this shit happened, it turns out he started to becoming very political. That's kind of scary and very freaky to me personally, because, like, if someone can get caught in a loop, in a trap, and I'm not trying to spook anyone here, but like if someone can get caught in a mousetrap in a sense like that, and just, kind of keep spiraling down, 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 to the point to where you just completely lose your shit and you become like, I don't know, the freaking Joker or some shit, DC Joker or whatever, in a sense, and you go and do that's just kind of freaky and scary, because, and I thought when I first heard of this, I thought that he was always kind of, political, like at least a good 2 or 3 years of being, because that would kind of make a bit more sense or whatever, like, okay, enough's enough, you know what I mean? Even if it's morally wrong, that does leave at least a bit more of a justification, even if it's super divided, to have that. But to, I don't know how long exactly it's like been recent from him starting to becoming political to the actual, thing or whatever. But like the fact that it was also recent before he just came and did that shit's just kind of scary. That's legit like a kill switch on a freaking robot or whatever. That's all peaceful and everything. You can just hit the remote or flip the switch and it turns all red and some shit. The freaking guns and, self activation, whatever, just comes out and starts attacking everyone. That's legit scary. And the fact that, you know, folks are having, the fact that that stuff like that is like happening and stuff is just freaky and scary. I do overall hope, that the killer not only gets, bring to justice and everything, but also more importantly, he, you know, gets the help he needs and everything, along with many other folks who are suffering in the world and everything. It just boggles my mind how it's like I swear it's the most obvious thing right now is mental health, mental health, mental health. And Joe didn't do shit, and nor is Trump really doing shit, at least from what I've heard or seen or whatever. But yeah, I'm not trying to get too political in this video here or whatever. I just overall feel like that hatred is the biggest worrisome thing, at least to me, in this world right now. Not about who's in control or about who's yelling at the other side or whatever, because I really don't give two shits on politics. Because I really just can't. It is such a headache of a storm. It is a constant hellish battle, and I have grown so numb to it at this point that I'm just like, you know what? If shit happens, oh well, it kind of scares me that I'm like that to an extent, but I've just grown so numb to it, and I just can't live off of that stuff. I really can't, folks. But the facts that they're more busy pointing fingers at themselves of who's to blame rather than actually working together to help fix not just the young folks of us today, but also our children and our children's children is really a disgrace and everything. And I really feel like the sooner we help each other, not just with, pointing in the right direction or whatever, but to actually give folks the tools so that those folks can help other folks in need or whatever. I feel like that's the very first step more than anything else right now. It does not matter if you're really here or not, if you're an immigrant or a Native American, it does not matter whatsoever. It does not matter what background you are. It doesn't matter if you're LGBTQ plus or religion. None of that shit matters. It may to an extent on, certain views or whatever, but the overall point is that none of that really matters to an extent because mental health affects us all the same nonetheless. And it's the very same damn thing with hatred, No matter how you slice it and dice it, no matter what the reason or justification, hatred is all the same. And it's everywhere. And it just kind of boggles my mind on that and everything. Even with me who has been on medication now, still kind of suffer from time to time. I take fluoxetine now, and a little quick side note. I was on Lexapro beforehand and everything. I was up to 15 milligrams, and I decided to go ahead and stop it because I just felt so numb. I wasn't sad anymore, but I couldn't get happy anymore. And life felt significantly worse because I was just so numb. It's like that Fairly Odd, I think there's like a Fairly Odd Parents episode or whatever, where Timmy wished that he didn't have any more emotions or feelings, and how he ended up really hating it because life was just so dull and nothing was happening or whatever, really. He couldn't really feel anything, and how he just wished for his feelings back, but how he kind of learned in that episode that it's important to have emotion, not just, the bad emotions that we may not like, but also the good emotions and everything, you know. But yeah. Overall, I just wanted to talk to you folks about hatred and how I feel like it's just everywhere, along with, drama and everything. It's truly out of control and nuts, folks. And I really hope that at some damn point we actually not like the folks in the medical team or psychological team or whatever, but the folks in the damn government, the system in of itself gets off their ass and actually, listens and starts helping us and everything. I'm not saying like it needs to be like an instantaneous thing or whatever because that's can't really realistically happen, but like I'm hoping at some point within this coming next decade of the 2030s or whatever, there's a gear turning point in the shift where things really start, truckling along like a train in a sense, right? Because things can't just be instant, things are going to take a lot of time and everything. But I really hope that after this, we really start setting up building blocks. And again, not just the folks in the, not just, the therapists or whatever, but like the higher ups, the government, because the big boys, the tippy tops, who actually, put the things in charge and have the whole system in place. I really hope, what I'm trying to say is, I just hope the system can rework itself, or we can slowly find ways to rework within the system. Because the system, it's not just outdated, but it's legit, draining us all and everything. And the facts that we're more busy pointing at who's wrong and who's right rather than just not giving a shit if we're right or not and just trying to help each other. I feel that's the biggest point and the biggest issue here in America more than anything else personally, is that very thing. But yeah, I just wanted to overall talk about that. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to leave this video here on a somber, sour note. So yeah, so other than that, whole BS thing and everything has just been eating away at my mind. But besides that, there was some good news. So I am overall doing, okay and better and everything. I still am kind of stunned by that happened and everything. Again, especially in my state. But I'm overall doing fine and everything, So this isn't like, I mean, this is to an extent, but I'm mainly okay and everything. I still got videos that I plan on uploading, for you folks later this week and everything. But what's probably the biggest news and what's probably the most happiest that I've probably been and what I'm most excited for is this coming Friday, because my album of Stage Zero is finally gonna come this Friday, folks. I actually uploaded it last Friday, before, but this coming Friday here, All the Leaps of Every Decay, Act 1, Stage Zero is finally here, folks. It is finally here, and I hope you folks are just as excited as I am on that. So I am very much looking forward to that and everything. So that's probably the biggest and most positive thing that I can give, in this video here and everything, besides me overall doing okay. But yeah, besides all of that being exciting and everything, it just I don't know, it just kind of affects me to an extent that it's, directly here, in Utah of all freaking states. Like, nothing ever really happens. The only freaky thing that, like, happened was the shock wave that, like, happened, a few years ago, whatever. And that kind of stunned me because that never freaking happened. And it's like, in Utah of all states, I know we're like the Mormon state, whatever, ha ha ha. It's kind of where I've been in all my life, but it whatever. It just kind of got to me and everything, and it's just something that's been kind of. And I've been thinking on it and everything, and I've been leaving some messages on venting channels and some Discord servers that I'm in and everything, and I just can't quite brush it off. So I figured maybe at least finally talking about it, giving it a lot of thought and everything. I just figured to finally discuss it and talk about it and everything. Overall, folks, I'm gonna say what I'm always gonna say. That love is truly love. Love is what brings us together, and hatred is what divides us all, and everything. And if you can't really see that, then I truly hope that something, helps you in some formal way, because it is true. The truth is the truth, no matter how slicing and dice it, just like how very much a lie is a lie, no matter how you slice and dice it. But anyway, folks, that's basically overall it for this video here and everything. So with all that being said, thank you folks all so much for watching, and I will see you all later this week.